Can you imagine hitting absolute rock bottom? I mean, completely, soul-crushingly bottom, where your address is the damp cardboard you sleep on, and your daily goal is finding a public sink to wash your face. That was me. Just 3 months after my divorce finalized, I was homeless, a broken man, discarded and invisible. But then, as I was sitting on a cold park bench, staring at the concrete, a sharply dressed stranger approached me, asked one question that changed everything. Are you Michael? You just inherited $47 million. Tell me, if you were me, would you ever have trusted that stranger? Or would you have assumed it was the cruelest joke the universe had left to play? To understand how I ended up on that bench, we have to go back to the beginning, to the life I had built and meticulously maintained, only to watch it crumble like sand. My name is Michael, and until about a year ago, I had what most people would consider a very comfortable, stable life. I was a regional manager for a mid-sized logistics company. I had a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet suburban cul-de-sac, 2 great kids, Sarah, my 16-year-old bookworm, and Mark, my 12-year-old soccer star, and a wife, Jessica, who I thought was my partner for life. Jessica and I had been together since college. We built our life brick by brick, sacrificing, saving, and planning. Our world revolved around school plays, weekend sports, and the comforting predictability of our routines. I wasn't wealthy, but I was secure. We had a solid savings account, good retirement plans, and the financial stability I'd always craved after growing up in a working-class family. The first crack in the foundation appeared so subtly I barely noticed it. Jessica started taking evening classes, continuing education, she called it. She wanted to explore her creative side, something she felt she'd put on hold to raise the kids. I supported her wholeheartedly. I started doing more around the house, handling the kids' activities, and making dinner. But the classes soon led to new friends, new hobbies, and a new circle that felt increasingly distant from my world of spreadsheets and shipment manifests. Our conversations dwindled to logistics, who was picking up whom, and what bills needed paying. The emotional connection, the easy laughter and shared dreams, evaporated. I felt like a functional roommate, not a husband. When I tried to talk to her about the distance, she became defensive, accusing me of holding her back and being boring. The word boring stung the most because I knew my stability, my boringness, was what had allowed her to pursue her creative passions without worry. The divorce wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow, agonizing bleed. She eventually admitted she had fallen for one of her classmates, a younger, much more adventurous man who was a struggling artist. The betrayal was like a physical blow, but the divorce itself was where I lost everything. Because I had been the sole, stable income earner for years, our assets were meticulously split. Jessica hired a ruthless attorney who argued successfully that the kids needed the stability of staying in the family home and school district. The house, our biggest asset, went to her. The settlement dictated that to buy her out and maintain the house, I would have to take on an astronomical mortgage, which my single income barely supported, even with the logistics job. I tried to fight it, but the legal fees bled my savings dry. In the end, to avoid financial ruin from the settlement, I was forced to sell the house quickly. I moved into a tiny, depressing one-bedroom apartment near my office. The stress, the constant legal battles, and the emotional toll started to affect my work. I was late, irritable, and my attention to detail vanished. The final blow came 2 months after the divorce was final. I was laid off. They called it restructuring, but I knew the truth. I was a liability, a wreck. Losing the house and the job simultaneously was a 1 2-punch that sent me spiraling. The tiny apartment became a financial black hole. Without income, and with bills piling up, I burned through the last of my meager severance package within weeks. I couldn't afford rent. I couldn't even afford the gas to drive my old, beaten-up sedan. I swallowed my pride and called every friend and relative I had, but everyone was either genuinely unable to help or too uncomfortable with my situation to offer a couch. The shame was suffocating. I sold everything I couldn't carry, my television, my few pieces of nice furniture, even my beloved guitar, to buy food. When the eviction notice came, I didn't fight it. I packed a worn backpack with a few changes of clothes, a faded photograph of my kids, and my wallet, which held nothing but an empty debit card and my ID, and I walked out. That's how I ended up on the streets of downtown Cityville. I spent the first few nights in a miserable daze, alternating between fury at Jessica and paralyzing self-pity. I learned the hard lessons fast: where to find a reasonably clean public bathroom, which shelters were too dangerous, and which spots under the freeway were relatively dry. My days blurred into a grueling cycle of walking, searching for food, and trying to stay warm. I was Michael, the logistics manager, reduced to a ghost. I tried to apply for jobs online at the public library, but without a fixed address, and with the overwhelming fatigue and constant anxiety, I failed every interview. I hadn't seen my kids in person since the move. I couldn't bear to let them see me like this. I told them I was away for a new, demanding job, a lie that hurt more than the cold. I would call them from payphones when I could scrape together the change, keeping my voice bright, listening to Sarah talk about her college applications and Mark complain about his coach. Those calls were my only connection to my past, my only reason not to give up entirely. The day it happened, I was sitting in Lincoln Park, near the large fountain that was shut off for the winter. It was cold, damp, and I hadn't eaten anything substantial in 2 days. I was trying to ration a stale bagel I'd found near a trash can. My clothes were grimy, my beard was scraggly, and I felt utterly broken. I was staring at a patch of dead grass, calculating how many hours until the sun set and the real cold began. That's when I heard the shoes crunching on the gravel next to me. They were expensive leather shoes, the kind I used to wear. I didn't look up. I just hunched further into my worn jacket. Then the voice came, crisp and formal, a stark contrast to the ambient street noise. "Excuse me, sir. Are you Michael Sterling?" I lifted my head slowly. Standing over me was a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a high-end financial magazine. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing a bespoke suit, and carrying a very expensive leather attaché case. He didn't look nervous or judgmental. He looked professional. I frowned, confused. No one had called me Michael Sterling in months. I was just "Hey you" or "Move along." "Yes." I mumbled, my throat dry. "I am." His eyes scanned my face, not with disgust, but with a deep, unsettling appraisal. Then he did something completely unexpected. He didn't offer me money for food or ask me to move. He opened his case, pulled out a stack of pristine documents, and stated, without a hint of drama, "I represent the estate of Dr. Julian Albright. Congratulations, Mr. Sterling. You have been identified as the sole surviving heir. You just inherited $47 million. The world seemed to tilt. I laughed, a horrible, dry, hacking sound that was part disbelief, part hysteria. $47 million. What is this, a hidden camera show? I tried to hand him back the papers he had offered, but he kept his hand steady. "Mr. Sterling," he continued, his tone patient and firm, "this is not a joke. My name is Jeffrey Thorne, and I am a partner at Thorne and Associates. Dr. Albright passed away last month. He was your biological father. We have confirmed the DNA through private testing based on a sample collected years ago. I understand this is shocking, but we need you to come with us immediately to begin the transition of assets. My biological father, Dr. Julian Albright, the name meant absolutely nothing to me. My parents, the ones who raised me, had always been clear. I was their son. My mother, bless her soul, passed away years ago, and my father lived quietly in another state. They were loving, if not wealthy. To suddenly be told that the man who had abandoned me, the man I never knew existed, was a multimillionaire who had just died and left everything to me, was simply too much to process. I was a dirty, starving homeless man being offered a ticket back to life, and then some, by a complete stranger claiming a dead man was my father. The coincidence, the timing, was too cinematic, too cruel to be true. Was this a scam? Was I being set up? Or was this the universe, having dragged me through hell, finally throwing me a life raft? So that's the situation I was in. I had literally nothing to lose, but the fear of a deeper betrayal, the fear of believing in hope only to have it snatched away, was paralyzing. Before I tell you what I did, whether I got up and followed Jeffrey Thorne or told him to find someone else to play his sick games with, I want you to pause right here. Comment below right now. What would *U* have done in my position? Would you have trusted the suit, the briefcase, and the mention of $47 million, or would you have stayed put, protecting the last sliver of your sanity? I stared at Jeffrey Thorne, his face unmoving, his expensive watch catching the weak sunlight. The scent of his cologne was a shocking sensory reminder of the world I'd lost. I knew that if this was a hoax, the humiliation would crush me completely. But if it was real, I could buy my kids back their home. I could erase the shame. I took a deep, shaky breath, the cold air burning my lungs. I need proof, Mr. Thorne, right now. I need something that can't be faked. Thorne nodded, seemingly prepared for this. He reached back into his case and pulled out a photo. A black and white snapshot of a younger man who bore a striking, almost painful resemblance to me, especially around the eyes and the chin. Beneath the photo, he pulled out a detailed copy of the will, which clearly listed me, Michael Sterling, with my date of birth as the sole heir. And finally, he pulled out a current, valid credit card issued by a very private, very exclusive bank, handing it to me. This account was established for immediate expenses by the estate. There is no limit. If you believe this is fake, try to use it. Now, Mr. Sterling, please. We have a car waiting. We need to secure the estate and your safety. The credit card felt foreign in my hand, heavy and cold. My fingers, chapped and dirt-stained, looked grotesque holding that piece of polished plastic. I looked at the man's calm, honest eyes, the expensive car idling discreetly down the street, and the absolute absurdity of my situation. I stood up, slowly, feeling the stiffness in my knees. I had nothing to lose but my skepticism. Fine, I rasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Let's go see the doctor who never knew my name. The next few hours were a dizzying blur of opulence and legal jargon. The car was a black Maybach, silent and plush. Thorne explained everything in a quiet, methodical voice. Dr. Julian Albright had been a brilliant but intensely private biomedical researcher. He had a brief affair with my mother decades ago, before she met my adoptive father. He never told her he was checking up on me, but a few years before I was born, he had inherited a substantial trust fund. When he realized my mother was pregnant, he had arranged for a discreet, non-invasive DNA sample to be taken after my birth, just to know for certain. He then respected her choice to raise me with her husband, never interfering, but he quietly monitored my life from a distance. He updated his will when his research firm was acquired for a massive sum, making him extraordinarily wealthy, and specified that his entire fortune $47 million, plus properties and residual income, must go to his only biological son, me. He died of a sudden, aggressive illness a month ago, leaving Thorne and Associates to find me. My first act, after being taken to a luxury hotel suite and finally taking a 2-hour shower, was to call my real father, the man who raised me. I didn't tell him about the money yet, just about the revelation of my biological parentage. He was quiet for a long time, then he simply said, "Your mother and I loved you, Michael. We always considered you ours." That man's money doesn't change a thing about that. His unconditional love brought me to my knees in tears. That conversation was the real treasure. Then came the climax with Jessica. Thorne had already prepared an injunction to recover the financial losses I had sustained during the divorce. With the resources of $47 million behind me, the legal landscape completely shifted. I didn't want revenge, I wanted fairness, and more importantly, I wanted my kids back in a stable, guilt-free environment. I flew back and scheduled a formal meeting with Jessica and her lawyer, using my own newly retained high-powered legal team. I walked into the conference room wearing a new suit, not custom, made like Thorne's, but perfectly tailored, and carrying myself with the quiet authority that financial security brings. Jessica looked absolutely stunned. She'd clearly seen the transformation from the broken man she divorced. I didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Jessica, I'm not here to gloat, I'm here to fix what you broke. You took advantage of my emotional distress and financial position to take the lion's share of our assets. I now have the resources to fight this for the next decade, but I won't. I want the house back, paid off in my name, where the kids can live without financial precarity." Her lawyer scoffed, citing the finality of the settlement. I simply smiled and had my lawyer slide across a new proposal. I would immediately pay off the entire mortgage on the house, sign the deed over to a trust established for the children, and pay Jessica a generous, but fair, lump sum equal to her equitable portion of our original marital assets, effectively neutralizing the unfair advantage she had taken. The kicker, I added a clause. I would take full custody of the children, and she would receive visitation, unless she chose to use her new, highly paid artist boyfriend's home as the primary residence. If she chose the latter, I would simply pay her off and walk away, allowing her to pursue her adventurous life without financial worry. Her lawyer was furious, but Jessica, seeing the money and the absolute legal certainty that I could fight her forever, and realizing I was offering a massive financial windfall that dwarfed the settlement she originally received, buckled. She took the buyout. She chose the money and the artist. She walked away from house and primary custody. The aftermath was profound. Within a month, I bought the house back, paid off every single cent of debt, and had the home professionally cleaned and furnished. The moment I walked through the door and the kids ran to hug me, I realized the money was just a tool. The real inheritance was the ability to be a father again, without the crushing weight of shame and poverty. I sat them down and explained the situation simply. Daddy had a hard time, but now everything is better. This house is safe, and we are safe. I never told them about the $47 million, just that I'd found a very good investment opportunity that had worked out. I used a fraction of the fortune to secure a portfolio that generates a stable, enormous income, allowing me to start my own logistics consulting firm from home, giving me the time and freedom to be present for my kids. I ensured my adoptive father was taken care of, buying him a beautiful retirement condo and ensuring his medical bills were paid for life. The irony is not lost on me. The father who loved me gave me stability. The father who abandoned me gave me freedom. I went from being a ghost on a park bench to a man with purpose and the means to protect the only people who ever truly mattered. The most important thing I inherited wasn't the millions, but the ability to finally look myself in the mirror and see a man worthy of the title Dad. If you've ever felt like your life was stolen from you, then like this video, subscribe if you want to see more stories about justice finally being served, and tell me in the comments below, if you received a fortune in the absolute darkest moment of your life, what is the first thing you would spend the money on? I'll see you all in the next story.